Hi, this is Kevin Blanche. Today I'm going to talk about politics. I'm going to talk about the Democrats versus the Republicans. I'm an old school Democrat. Grew up right up here in Ogden, Utah. Believe it or not, extremely progressive town. Very working class, wealthy working class. Rich city. It was a very rich city. Had a lot of industry going on, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of culture, a lot of Marin Eccles from this town, John Browning from this town. You go over and over and over. Leslie Hodson from this town. It's a progressive, wealthy town. Believe it or not, even the president of the Mormon Church when I was a little boy in the 60s, lived right up there, was a Democrat, a liberal. Seriously, believe it or not, his brother was our congressman. But anyway, as things have changed in Utah, oh boy, have they changed the whole country. But the reason I shot this in front of my 1960 Bel Air is because the old school Democrat values were like this. They were buy American, support working class Americans. That was their whole agenda. They were called protectionists. Protect jobs. That's what, the thesis of their entire party for decades and decades was America makes the best, America is the best. As far as the working class America, they were pro-union, they were pro-working class, and the old economic saying is GM goes, America goes, which was so true. Well, I'm kind of a monument to what's happened to the countries in that context. I've been one of these buy American guys my whole life. My kids freaking drive me crazy. I've never owned a foreign car in my life, but it's kind of a great metaphor if you look around my house and my yard. I got all these old GMs sitting around. There's my 1960 Bel Air, my Cadillac, one of my trucks. There's a couple more. Well, that is a Ford. I bought it from my old high school shop teacher, believe it or not. There's another old Chevy, another old Ford Falcon, but mostly old GMs hanging around here, and none of them run worth a shit, except for the 1960 Bel Air. So it's kind of like the Democratic Party. And the Republican Party for years and years was always, lower taxes, lower taxes, lower taxes, lower taxes. That started in the 80s, and fiscal responsibility. Well, I'm here to tell you, the Republicans have never been fiscally responsible, ever, ever. They blow up the debt every chance they get, and it's always been that way. They've turned into the Republican Party in America has turned into the party of fake. They're draft dodgers, they're freaking, we hate taxes, but we like everything this has, we don't have to pay back. Everything they say and stand for is gone. It's kind of like a lot of evangelical Christian movement has happened in this country. They all say something, and a lot of them end up, we hate gays, but we're gay. It happens over and over and over and over and over and over. But the thing I want to talk about is how they've lost their way in NAFTA, and why. Why do we not talk about these things? Why did they lose their way, and why did they lose their values? And, everybody's saying, well, GM fell apart because they made shittier vehicles. I disagree. I think they made worse design vehicles, but I think it's perfectly correlated. If you look, when the working class America's wages started to fall, they started to fall about 1980. And they started to fall slowly, more dramatic all the time. They started to implode from 45 to 75. They rose and rose and rose. The disparity between the haves and the have-nots closed so rapidly in the 1950s and 60s and 70s. That's what America was. We had GM was a big piece of that. The auto industry in Detroit, we had all these magnificent design vehicles and this art and this culture because working class people were making a lot of money. They had time to evolve their minds in art and culture. They don't anymore. So the design fell apart, and let's get real about it. It was really uncommon for anybody to drive more than 5,000 or 10,000 miles a year. They worked in their own communities, had their own job. They had a good job right over. Well, what happened? The change, they'd buy a GM vehicle that was built to go 10,000 miles a year, and you drove it for 10 years, got your 100,000 on it, to people driving 30,000 miles a year. They weren't built for it, they weren't equipped for it, and they fell down. And the reason people were driving 30,000 miles is because they were commuting to work, commuting all over, because they were working longer hours and it was imploding. One of the reasons. But like I said, the Republicans have never been about fiscal responsibility. I don't know where they get off. Where do they get off talking about this? They're out in left field on this thing. and the Democrats, come back to earth. When are you guys going to come back to really supporting freaking working class Americans? You know, it's sad that you can't even get one of these guys making a good talking point. Why don't you talk about what freaking Americans want? They want good jobs. They don't want to compete with 10 cents an hour labor in China. They don't want to compete with some guy pulling out freaking, here's a couple of dollars for working me for this illegal all week. I can't pay you till I get paid. Oh, what do you mean? I know I haven't paid you in 3 months. Oh, you quit? Send your cousin over. You know, we don't want to compete with that. All the average American wants is a good job. That's it. Raise a family. They can handle the rest of the shit. They can handle the moral issues themselves. They can handle their religion themselves. They can pick where they want to go to church and what they want to do that way. They don't need the government to get in the middle of their religious theology. They don't need the government to get in the middle of, you know, gay versus straight. They don't need to get in the middle of, you know, all the other bullshit. You know, they need the government to freaking throw down the gauntlet on people they're cheating, and throw down the gauntlet and repeal NAFTA. Bring our jobs home. Start to bring our manufacturing base up. We can't compete with 10 cents an hour. Neither can our kids. Neither can no one. Kevin Blanch, 2010.